Texas Tech looks to get back in the win column, this time against a familiar foe on the road in the Oklahoma State Cowboys. In today's video, I'll break down the matchup, give you the latest injury update, including that of five-star wide receiver Micah Hudson, the odds, prediction, and the must-watch matchup. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast, and well, you know, on this channel, we love to get interactive, so why don't we just start it that way? Who you got in this one? Texas Tech at Oklahoma State, a bigger game for the Red Raiders in terms of really trying to build that momentum, albeit at a slower pace than I think a lot of fans like in terms of the gradual increase of where the program is headed. But you got to win games to get there first. This would be win number 7 if they were to beat Oklahoma State. Let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below for what will be senior day at Boone Pickens Stadium there in Stillwater for the Cowboys. Can Texas Tech ruin that for Oklahoma State? Let me know your score prediction down below. All right. Joey McGuire as Texas Tech head coach after that loss to Colorado a couple of weeks ago after the bye. He is now 9-3 in terms of his record as Texas Tech head coach in the months of November and December. Still averages out to about a 750 winning percentage. We take those numbers, albeit he can still be frustrated with some of those losses and the performances. Now, as for setting the scene on this one, as I mentioned, this game will take place in Stillwater, Oklahoma at Boone Pickens Stadium. Kickoff is set for 2:30 p.m. Central Time on ESPN+. The history between Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, this will be the 38th all-time matchup between the Red Raiders and the Cowboys. Oklahoma State leads the all-time series in this one, and unfortunately, Texas Tech is 2-8 in terms of the last 10 matchups against the Cowboys, the last wins coming in 2018 and 2019. But let's move on to present day injury report for Texas Tech after Joey McGuire had his pre-game presser, I guess pre-week presser in terms of going into Oklahoma State game week. Out for the season is linebacker Justin Horn with a knee injury, just yet another season-ending injury for a member of the Texas Tech defense. Now, Bryce Ramirez will miss this game as well as he recovers from having a rod removed from his lower leg. They are hoping to have him active for senior day against West Virginia next week. As for the questionables in this game, for the Red Raiders, you got Reese Burkhart with an arm injury. He is the kicker. I think he might be good to go. I don't know. I mean, it's an arm injury, right, for a kicker. We'll see. Tight end, Jalen Conyers has a neck injury. Then you've got Trent Lowe, a linebacker, with an arm injury. And then you got Javon Wilcox as well, who has not played this year, out with a knee injury for, well, every other game. He is now listed as questionable for this one and could play and make his Red Raider debut. Now, there is one more guy to talk about on the questionable list, and probably the biggest name. I mentioned him early on in the video. Five-star wide receiver Micah Hudson. He has missed, well, a couple of games this year, most notably last game against Colorado with the lower leg injury. Joey McGuire says he hopes to have him back against Oklahoma State, having a package or two with him on the offensive side, and then also wanting to see what he can do as a punt returner. Now, they did mention the snaps that if Micah Hudson is unable to go in this one, will go to redshirt freshman Kelby Volson in this one. So that's very interesting. But it does sound like on the Micah Hudson front, if he is not able to go against Oklahoma State, you should see him against West Virginia the following week after Thanksgiving, play against West Virginia there on senior night. Now, when it comes to the must-watch matchup in this one, you have two of the best running backs in college football. I said it from the jump. People have called me biased, and when I say jump, I mean earlier this year. I've always thought Taj Brooks was better than Ollie Gordon. Maybe that was a biased take at the beginning of the year, but looking at the numbers this year, the utilization, the efficiency, I mean, we see what it is, right? Taj Brooks is better, and that's the must-watch matchup in this one. And the reason being is this. First and foremost, we know Taj Brooks is an absolute stud, right? He's the all-time leading rusher in the Texas Tech football program now after his performance against Colorado. Awesome stuff there, right? There's no doubting that. But when you look at this matchup in terms of where Texas Tech can take advantage against an Oklahoma State team that, if we're being brutally honest about it, has had an awful season for their expectations with Mike Gundy as the head coach, right? They have not been able to figure anything out, especially with how experienced they are, most notably on the offensive side, I don't think anybody saw this coming from the Cowboys. That being said, we're going to focus on Taj in this case because Texas Tech comes into this matchup against Oklahoma State with the 10th best rushing offense in the Big 12. Nothing crazy, right? You know Taj Brooks is leading the way, and that's how the offense starts, right? Everything goes through Taj, and then you figure everything else out. But against Oklahoma State, it might be one of those scenarios where everything goes through Taj and you may not have to figure anything else out. Because when you look at what Oklahoma State does from a defensive standpoint against the run, there really is no nice way to say this. They're ass defending the run. I mean, they are really bad. And it's by a lot in terms of them being last in the Big 12. So when you look at everything, Oklahoma State gives up 240 yards on the ground on average, okay? It is absolutely repulsive if you like any kind of rushing defense. You have to get Taj, Jacoby, and then obviously Cam Dickey involved. 35-plus carries is a minimum in this matchup for the trifecta of running backs that you have. And Taj, shoot, he may get close to 30 depending on what it looks like. But you have to get the Texas Tech offensive line back on track when it comes to winning in the run game. They simply were not good enough against Colorado. If you look at the stats, almost, I believe it was 85% of Taj Brooks' rushing yards against Colorado came after contact. He had over 130 yards, and 110 of them came after first contact. Like, it was mostly Taj doing all the work there. The offensive line didn't do too much, right? That's got to change, obviously, and the best way to get a rhythm for an offensive line is the ground game. That's just how that works. So I'm interested to see how early and often Zach Kittley gets Taj in the running game involved, and that should open things up in the passing game for Baron Morton in terms of getting the ball to Josh Kelly, taking those downfield shots to Caleb Douglas, maybe seeing a little bit of Micah Hudson. Who knows at that point? But you have to start it with the run game, and I know that sounds like a Captain Obvious thing, but listen, 240 yards per game allowed on the ground. Now more than ever is the time to be Captain Obvious against this Oklahoma State team. Run the damn ball, okay? When it comes to the odds in this one, Texas Tech is actually favored on the road. It opened up at FanDuel at 4.5. It has now since gone down to 3.5. The total over-under in this one is set at 68.5. And I'll be honest with you, I was wrong about that Colorado game. A lot of people are going to say, refs, all this stuff. Texas Tech just disappeared offensively for long stretches of time in that game. It is what it is. There was a lot of self-inflicted wounds, as well as calls that should have been made by Texas Tech, for Texas Tech, I should say, but weren't, right? Whatever. It's over. It's in the past. I think Texas Tech comes out of the bye week with a vengeance. You saw what they did last time out of the bye. They laid an egg. I think that's going to be a point of emphasis for this team going into two games that they need to win, right? You win these two games, it's 8-4. It's not exactly where you want to be. You feel like you left some things on the table if you do inevitably win these two games, right? Including that TCU game, maybe another game on the schedule elsewhere, right? Like, you feel like you left a game or two on the slate in terms of a win. But if you finish at 8-4, I think that's where a lot of people realistically had Texas Tech finishing, myself included. But you have to win this game against Oklahoma State, period. Oklahoma State is not good. Did you see what TCU did to them last week? It was awful. I mean, they were bad. They have checked out mentally, physically, and every other way you can if you're the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Will they be inspired on Senior Day? Probably, but you have to come out there if you're the Red Raiders and really let them know, hey, we're not going to give you any hope early on, okay? And you cannot disappear offensively like you have for long stretches of time. Joey McGuire talked about that in the presser leading up to the Oklahoma State game. They have to do a better job after that first, second, and third possessions and really keep that momentum going because he felt like they have gone stagnant this year. He's right. We all see it, but you can't do that against Oklahoma State in this game to give them any hope whatsoever. I have the Red Raiders winning in this one, covering. I have Texas Tech winning 43-35. I think Oklahoma State scores late to make it a one-possession game, but I thoroughly expect and need to see Texas Tech come out and dominate a lesser opponent, regardless of if it's on the road, regardless of if this is a Big 12 game, regardless of if there's Senior Day for Oklahoma State, regardless of if this is a rivalry game in some people's eyes. Texas Tech is a better football team. Prove it to me on Saturday up in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Again, my prediction 43, 35, Texas Tech leaves Stillwater with their 7th victory. Let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below for Texas Tech at Oklahoma State. Again, this feels like if you win these next 2 games, it's not exactly where you want it to be. You feel like you left a game or 2 on the table, but in terms of the progression of the program, this is definitely a step in the right direction, albeit maybe not at the pace that a lot of people, me included a little bit, wanted, right? But 8-4, not too bad. If you want to stay in the know on all things Texas Tech football, it's men's basketball season as well. Just 3 simple steps, people. I tell you all year, like the video, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. It's as simple as that. Those 3 steps, if you want to join the largest group of Texas Tech fans on YouTube for 100% free content on everything on the gridiron, everything on the hardwood for the Red Raiders, including transfer portal news. Ladies and gentlemen, I know there's a bowl game about a month away for Texas Tech, but we're going to be talking about the transfer portal too here. We'll have updates on that. We'll be talking about everything hoops as well for the Red Raiders. So if you want to stay in the know, you know what to do. Like the video, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell to join the Back to 12 squad today.